I used to work the night shift at a corporate office building in Cleveland, Ohio. It was one of those tall glass towers downtown, the kind that looked alive during the day but felt abandoned at night. My job wasn't glamorous. I was just an IT support guy, covering emergencies after hours. Most nights I was alone on the 14th floor, fixing servers, answering a few late-night emails, or just killing time with coffee. But then there was him. Everyone in the building knew about Frank, the janitor. Middle-aged, quiet, always in his green uniform with a ring of keys that jingled as he walked. He worked the night shift too, and if you stayed late, you'd almost always run into him at some point. The thing was, Frank had died years ago. At least that's what I was told later. The first time I noticed something strange was around 2:30 a.m. one night. I had just finished resetting a server and was heading toward the elevator. Down the long corridor, I saw him, Frank, pushing his mop bucket, keys jingling, just like always. "Evening," I muttered, raising a hand. He stopped, looked at me. His face was hard to describe, pale, shadowed by the dim lights. He didn't smile, didn't say anything, just pushed the mop forward again, the wheels squeaking across the tile. I remember thinking he seemed off, tired maybe. But then, over the next few weeks, I kept seeing him in odd places. Sometimes I'd take the elevator to the basement for coffee and catch him standing in the corner of the parking garage, staring at the wall. Sometimes, when I was the only one logged into the system, I'd hear his keys jingling right outside my office door. But when I opened it, the hallway was empty. One night, around 3 a.m., I was sitting at my desk when I heard the squeak of wheels. I looked up, and there he was, Frank, pushing his mop bucket slowly past the open office doorway. I blinked, and he was gone. Just gone. I thought maybe I was imagining things, until I asked. The next day, during the afternoon shift, I mentioned it casually to Lisa from HR. "Hey, does Frank always work nights? I keep running into him." Lisa froze. Her coffee cup slipped in her hand. "Frank?" she whispered. "Yeah, the janitor. Middle-aged guy, green uniform, keys. Why?" She set her cup down, looked me dead in the eyes. "Frank has been dead for 5 years." My stomach turned. "What?" "He had a heart attack in the basement. Middle of his shift. The security guard found him. It was all over the building. You seriously didn't know?" Number. I hadn't. From then on, every encounter with him was worse. One night, I was in the restroom washing my hands when I heard a stall door creak open, the sound of keys. I turned around slowly. The mirrors along the sink reflected the stall doors behind me, closed. But in the farthest one, I saw feet, black shoes, green pants. The door creaked open wider in the mirror. But when I turned around, nothing. The stall was empty. Another night, I stayed later than usual, nearly 4 a.m. As I gathered my stuff, I heard the mop bucket wheels squeaking in the corridor. The sound grew closer. I froze, listening. The squeak stopped right outside my office door. Then, the doorknob rattled. Slow, deliberate. I didn't move. My breath caught in my throat. The knob rattled again, harder this time. I grabbed my bag, flicked off the lights, and bolted for the stairs. I swear I heard keys jingling behind me the entire way down. I didn't work the night shift after that. I told my manager I couldn't. Luckily, she agreed, said too many people had quit that position already. But sometimes, when I drive past that building late at night, I swear I see him, standing in the lobby, keys in hand, watching And I wonder if he's just waiting for someone to keep him company on the graveyard shift. I used to work at a 24-hour shipping warehouse in Detroit, Michigan. It wasn't glamorous. Long hours, heavy lifting, forklifts buzzing around, and the constant smell of diesel and cardboard. The place ran like a machine. Day shifts were busy, loud, and chaotic, but the night shift, that was different. Quieter. Too quiet. That's when I met Eddie. Or at least I thought I did. I was about 2 weeks into the job when my supervisor, Rick, told me I'd be partnered with a new guy. He's a good worker, Rick said. Name's Eddie. Keeps to himself. But he'll help you load trucks. That night I met him. A skinny guy, maybe mid-30s, pale skin under the fluorescent lights. He wore a faded blue hoodie under his vest and didn't say much. "Eddie," he muttered, shaking my hand with a grip too cold for comfort. We worked side by side that night, loading pallets, sealing boxes, wheeling crates. The shift dragged, but Eddie never complained. He didn't really talk, either. Just nodded when I gave directions. But here's the thing. Nobody else seemed to notice him. Around 3 a.m., we were stacking heavy boxes on a trailer. I asked Eddie to grab the dolly. He nodded and walked off into the shadows of the warehouse floor. I turned back to the stack when Rick called out, "Hey, what are you doing talking to yourself?" I frowned. "I'm not." Eddie went to grab the dolly. Rick blinked. "Who?" "Eddie," I repeated. "The guy you paired me with tonight." Rick's face went pale. He walked closer, lowering his voice. "Kid, there's no Eddie here." My stomach dropped. "No, he was just here. Skinny guy, hoodie?" Rick shook his head. "You must be tired. You've been working doubles." But I wasn't imagining things. Eddie came back a minute later, dolly in hand, his pale face blank. I froze. Rick had already walked away. From then on, I noticed strange things. When Eddie and I worked together, I could hear the squeak of the dolly wheels, the slam of boxes. But whenever someone else came near, the noises stopped. If a coworker walked past, Eddie would just fade into the shadows. One night, I tried to prove it. I called over another loader, Marcus. "Hey, Marcus, this is Eddie." He's been helping me out. Marcus glanced where I pointed, his brow furrowed. Dude, there's no one standing there." I turned back. Eddie was gone. The scariest night was my last. It was storming outside, rain hammering the warehouse roof. I was stacking boxes when Eddie appeared beside me. His face looked different this time. Hollow. Eyes too dark. Sunken in. "Need help?" he asked. His voice was low, raspy, like it echoed. I froze. It was the first real sentence he'd ever spoken. Lightning flashed through the loading bay doors. For a split second, I saw him clearly. His hoodie soaked, his skin pale and bloated, like he'd been pulled out of water. I stumbled back. He smiled. "You'll get used to it," he whispered. Then the lights in the warehouse flickered. Once, twice, and when they came back, he was gone. The next day, I asked Rick again. "There was an Eddie," he admitted quietly. "Years back, worked nights. He, drowned. Driving home after shift, his car went into the river off the overpass. They didn't find him for 3 days." I felt sick. Rick glanced around, then leaned closer. "You're not the first one to see him. That was the last night I worked at that warehouse. But sometimes, when I hear the squeak of dolly wheels in an empty loading dock, I wonder if Eddie's still there, still trying to finish his shift." I used to work at a call center in Phoenix, Arizona. It was one of those mind-numbing jobs, headset on, staring at a glowing monitor for 8 hours, repeating the same script over and over. The place was big. Cubicles stretched out like a maze, humming with fluorescent lights and the low drone of voices. That's where I met Daniel. He was a temp, hired for the holiday season. Tall, awkward, always wearing a wrinkled white shirt and a thin black tie. He didn't say much outside of work calls, but when he did, his voice sounded off, like there was a second voice behind it. The first time I noticed something strange was during a late shift. It was nearly 10 p.m., most of the floor was empty, and I was troubleshooting a stubborn customer file. I looked up, and Daniel was standing 3 cubicles down. Not working, not typing, just standing there, staring at me. I gave him a small wave. Everything good, man?" He tilted his head slightly, then slipped back into his cubicle without a word. The next morning, I asked my manager, Heather, about him. "Hey, what's up with Daniel?" "He doesn't talk much." Heather frowned. "Daniel? Who's that?" "The new temperature. Black tie, white shirt, tall guy. He's been sitting near me." She shook her head. "We don't have a Daniel on the roster." I laughed nervously. "Come on. I've been working next to him all week." Heather pulled up the schedule, showed me every name. No Daniel. That night, I decided to confront him directly. Around 9 p.m., most of the floor cleared again, leaving just a handful of us. Daniel sat in his cubicle, headset on, typing furiously. I walked over. "Hey, man, which agency placed you here?" I asked. He turned slowly. His headset wasn't plugged into anything. His screen was blank. His eyes weren't right. They were too dark, too flat, like glass. "I've always been here," he whispered. My skin crawled. "What do you mean?" He smiled slightly. "You'll understand soon." Then he looked past me over my shoulder. I turned. Nobody was there. When I looked back, his cubicle was empty. Chair pushed in. The following week, I tried not to think about it. Maybe I was overtired, hallucinating. Until one night, I stayed even later, midnight overtime. The building was practically empty. I was walking toward the break room when I saw him again. Daniel, standing at the far end of the cubicle maze, his tie hanging crooked, his head tilted, watching me. This time I didn't move. He stepped forward. His shoes didn't make a sound against the carpet. The overhead lights flickered, and in those flashes, his face changed. His features blurred like static on a TV. His mouth stretched too wide. His skin rippled like liquid. I turned and ran. Didn't even grab my bag. The next day I came in shaking. Heather noticed. "You look like hell," she said. "I saw him again," I muttered. "Who?" "Daniel. The temperature." Her face went pale. Without a word, she led me to the storage room in the back, dug through a dusty filing cabinet. Finally, she pulled out a thin folder and handed it to me. Inside was a newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. "Call center employee found dead in break room, 1998. The photo showed a younger man, white shirt, black tie, same crooked smile. His name? Daniel Cross. Heather's voice shook. "People say he never really left." I quit a week later. Got a different job, far away from cubicles. But sometimes, when I sit at a desk late at night, I swear I feel someone watching from the corner of the room. And I wonder if Daniel found another office, another set of co-workers to haunt. Back when I was fresh out of college, I worked at a downtown law firm in New York City. The building was old, over 100 years, with brass doors, marble floors, and one of those creepy manual elevators. Most people use the modern elevators on the other side, but every once in a while, if you stayed late, the firm would ask you to use the old lift since the others powered down after midnight. That's where I met the operator. It was close to 1 a.m. I'd just finished paperwork on the 12th floor. I pressed the call button for the old elevator, and after a long groan of gears, the heavy gate slid open. Inside was a man in a faded navy uniform, cap tilted low, gloves on his hands. He looked like he belonged in another century. "Where to?" he asked, voice flat but polite. I told him the lobby. He nodded, pulled the lever, and the elevator groaned to life. The ride down was slow, creaking. I tried to make small talk. Didn't know they still had someone working this elevator. He smiled faintly. Always have. Something about his voice sent a chill down my spine. The next night I worked late again. Same thing. Called the elevator and there he was. Same uniform, same stiff smile. But here's what got me. When I reached the lobby and turned to thank him, he was gone. The elevator was empty. The gate was still sliding open, the car perfectly still, but the operator had vanished in the second it took me to blink. I asked around the office the next day, "Hey, who's the guy running the old elevator at night?" Everyone gave me blank stares. "There hasn't been an operator in that elevator for decades," one partner finally said. "It's self-service. Always has been." My blood ran cold. I told myself it was stress, lack of sleep. Maybe I imagined him. Until the third night. I stayed past midnight, grabbed the old elevator again. The doors opened, and sure enough, he was there. Same uniform, same cap. But this time, when I stepped inside, I noticed something. The brass nameplate on his chest. It was tarnished, but I could still read it. Thomas Keene, operator. I froze, because I remembered that name. Years ago, my dad told me a story about this building, about an elevator operator who died in an accident when the car plummeted 13 floors. They said his ghost never left. I looked up at him slowly. He was staring straight at me. "You've heard the stories, haven't you?" he asked. My throat went dry. Yeah, I whispered. His faint smile widened. "Good. Then you know what happens if you ride alone." Before I could react, the elevator lurched, hard. The car shook violently, dropping faster than it should. My stomach flipped. I grabbed the rail, heart racing. The operator didn't move, didn't flinch. The floor numbers spun past too fast to read. Then, screech. The car jolted to a stop. My knees buckled. When I looked up, I wasn't at the lobby. The gate slid open to a pitch-black hallway. Dust, peeling wallpaper, lights that hadn't worked in decades. The smell of mildew and rot hit me. I knew this floor. The 13th floor. The one sealed off years ago after a fire. "End of the line," he said softly. I stumbled back, shaking my head. "No, this isn't real." His smile was gone now. His face pale, eyes hollow. "You shouldn't ride alone." The lights flickered. When they came back, he was gone, and the elevator was empty. I slammed the lever myself, praying it would move. After what felt like an eternity, the car rattled back down, stopping at the lobby. The gate opened to the security guard, who stared at me in confusion. "Kid, what are you doing in there? That elevator's been out of service for years. I quit the firm not long after. But sometimes, late at night, when I pass old buildings with brass elevators, I swear I hear the creak of chains. and I wonder if Thomas Keene is still waiting to take someone else for a ride. I used to work the graveyard shift at a hospital in Chicago. Not as a doctor, not even as a nurse. I was just an orderly. The guy who moved patients between rooms, cleaned equipment, and ran errands. It was a hard job, but I didn't mind. What I did mind was the break room fridge. I know how that sounds, but let me explain. The hospital was huge, sterile, a maze of white walls and flickering fluorescent lights. The night shift was always thin on staff. By 2 a.m., it felt like half the building was abandoned. The break room was tucked into the basement near the laundry area, a depressing little space with a sagging couch, a microwave, and that old white fridge. People always complained about it, said it smelled bad, ran too loud. But what bothered me wasn't the smell. It was the noise. Because sometimes, late at night, the fridge would whisper. The first time I noticed it, I was sitting in the break room alone, sipping stale coffee. The fridge hummed softly, the way fridges do. Then, underneath the hum, I heard something else. A faint voice. "Help!" I froze, leaned closer. "Please, let me out." The sound was muffled, like someone calling from behind a door. I yanked the fridge open. Just stale sandwiches, a half-empty soda, a plastic container of leftovers. No one inside, obviously. But when I shut the door, the whisper stopped. I told myself I was overtired, maybe I imagined it. But over the next few weeks, it kept happening. Always after 2 a.m., always when I was alone. So cold. I can't breathe. Please. The voices came from inside the fridge, like trapped mouths pressing against metal. Sometimes I thought I heard scratching. I started avoiding the break room, but the job eventually forced me down there. One night I ran into Nurse Kelly. She was older, kind, but tired looking. "You okay?" she asked when she saw my pale face. I hesitated, then told her about the fridge, the voices. Her expression darkened. She set down her coffee. "You heard them too?" My stomach turned. "Wait, you've heard it?" She nodded slowly. "Everyone on nights has. They say the fridge came from the old psych ward before they tore it down. Nobody wanted it, so they dumped it here." I laughed nervously. "That's insane." Her voice was grim. "So, were the patients who died in that ward?" That night, I decided to test it. I set my phone on record and left it on top of the fridge while I did rounds. When I came back an hour later, I played the audio. At first, just the hum. Then, faint scratching. And then a voice. Clear as day. "We're still hungry." I dropped the phone. The worst night was my last. I was in the break room trying to grab a soda before rounds. The fridge was humming louder than usual, rattling like something inside was fighting to get out. Then I heard it, a chorus of voices. "Join us." "So cold down here." "Open the door." The fridge door handle shook. I backed away. My heart pounded. The door creaked open on its own. The smell of rot spilled into the room. And inside. For just a second I saw them. Pale hands pressing against the shelves. Faces, dozens of them, screaming silently from the frost. I bolted. Left the soda. Left my bag. I never went back. Weeks later, I heard that the hospital finally replaced the fridge. Hauled the old one out into the alley. But when the garbage crew came to pick it up, they refused. Said it was too heavy. Even empty. Like something inside wouldn't let go.